Well, you and I had kind of talked about this. So there are two, when I had developed the agenda, there was one item that I put on there that needed action from the collaborative planning team recommendations, but in reality there are two. So I don't know if we want to add a second, 7.4, or revise 7.3, or add one on as we go.
Yeah, and my thoughts were, so these are recommendations, the board could change them, accept or not accept, the board could make a different decision. And I thought maybe after the discussion and there was a consensus on what we were going to modify, if anything, then a motion to incorporate those things that we have a consensus on would work better than trying to handle multiple ones. Maybe we'd end up with a third or fourth if there's other changes that are being recommended. Is there a problem with modifying our 7.3 basically to approve modifications to the plan? Would that be agreeable? Okay, so we typically vote on agenda adjustments, and that really is changing the wording of that. So, I would make a motion that we will modify 7.3 to approve a motion to approve changes to the plan for the pandemic, the COVID-19 plan that we have in place.
Second.
Any other discussion? So seeing none, all those in favor, we have to take a roll call because Vicky's attending.
Yep. Vicky? Can't hear you.
All right, we'll
She
come
says
back
yes.
to her.
Thumbs up.
Oh, thumbs up?
Yep.
Okay.
Christy?
Yes.
Dory is absent. Robbie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
And Scott is absent. Motion carries.
All right. Consideration of the minutes. Have a motion, please, to
So
approve.
moved. Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the January 12th, 2022 meeting. Are there any comments, changes? Not seeing none. Vicki is shaking her head no. No changes?
Can you hear us? No.
Bob is very echoey, and I can't hear a word he's saying.
Okay.
Yeah. Zoom has been something funky. Can you hear me now, Vicky?
Oh, maybe because
I can hear you. You're fine.
Okay.
Can we turn that one? Is that one on? Let's see. Maybe that's picking it up. Send it out twice.
I got this on here.
Is that better now, Vicki?
Can you hear him now? No.
Is he speaking?
Yes.
Yeah, I am now.
No.
Okay, well, she's picking you up because you're
She's-
speaking right into
Yeah,
there.
she's picking me up.
The rest of it, she has to pick up from out in the room.
Yeah. So basically, Bob is wondering if you have any any adjustments to the minutes.
No.
Okay.
All right, Don. So call for a vote to accept the minutes as published.
Vicky?
Yes.
Chrissy?
Yes.
Absent. Robbie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes?
Scott is absent. Motion carries with no changes.
Okay, public comment. This time we open the floor to anybody who would like to make a comment about our school system. And we ask that you, I don't know how many people are online.
Not many.
Okay, so I would ask that you try and keep it short. We don't have a set period of time now, but we do have business that we need to get to. And so if we'd like to make sure that anybody that wants to be heard has an opportunity to express their thoughts. So at this time, we will open it up. Those that are on Zoom, if you would raise your hand or send a chat, the superintendent will see the chat, and he can either read the question or ask you to go and sign on. So this time, we'll open it up.
So for those out in the, I guess the interweb, I like that, that's a good term, it's public comment period. So if anybody has a public comment they'd like to make, please raise their hand. I don't have anybody out on Zoom.
Okay. Nobody has indicated they'd like to take this opportunity, so we will move along. Petitions and Communications.
I have none this evening.
And I have received nothing other than just the things we get from DOE, weekly updates and et cetera. Move on to report, superintendent's report, oral report.
Sure. So I've got a list of things this evening. So number one, I'd like to welcome Jessica Colon here. Jessica is our acting business manager. So we welcome her to our first board meeting. I will say Jess has certainly taken over and is doing a fabulous job. Currently she's doing 2 jobs because she is still managing payroll. But she has really grabbed the reins and is working well. So we're happy to have her. I'm happy to have her help me out with those things because it's been a heavy lift for sure. So just so you all are aware, Kathy and I are still covering the duties of some of the business manager duties and the director of operations. So Kathy has taken on the role of food service director. So she's learning quite a bit there. We have hired Allison Levitt as a consultant. She's the food service director in Lisbon, so she's helping out. Obviously, you know, Kathy and I talked about it today. We're learning an awful lot about food. Would you agree, Kath? Yeah, lots about food. And I'm handling all the duties of the director of operations, so that's maintenance and transportation. Kathy Perry, who is one of our bus drivers, has taken over the role of head bus driver, and I have to tell you, she is doing a fantastic job. Like, I can't even say enough, and I'm seeing some nodding in the audience. She has really taken the reins, and she is doing great things. So I'm really happy to have her in that role. Certainly, we've got a lot of projects going on. I think Robbie will talk about them we have a Finance and Facilities Committee meeting. We are working on the budget. The budget, obviously, it is budget season. I will tell you that the budget is going to be up. There is no other choice than for it to be up. As you know, in your own homes, things are costing more. Well, they're costing more here. Just case in point, oil. You know, this year we're locked in, I think, at $1.94 a gallon. I'm telling you that won't be the price for next year. It just won't. Everything is up. The cost of everything is up. I expect our supply lines to be up close to 20% because just the cost of doing business has gone up. With that being said, we did get the preliminary ED 279. It was quite favorable. It's up about $500,000, so that was well received. I have heard a little rumblings that there might be more money later on, but this time of year we hear those things, so you just never know. I do know the state's running a surplus, but I can't say that we'll ever see any of that. But up $500,000 is a win for us. As you know, for the first time in the FY22 budget, we do have carry forward funds built into the revenue side of the budget. That is a dangerous thing to do because you have to make sure you have that every year. But to make this budget work and be where it is, we had to do that. So, I think we're looking good to have that again, hopefully for next year. But that's a work in progress for sure. One thing I learned this week, and we talked about it in Finance and Facilities, so originally when we were talking about the construction project, I had said to you all we were going to need 2 separate votes. We were going to need a school closure vote, and we were going to need a vote on the construction and bond. Jess and I met with Greg Inn from Drummond Woodsum this week, and that is not the case. Because it's not lack of need, because it's a construction project, we don't need to have a school closure vote. The vote to approve the construction and the bond is all that needs to happen to close the schools because it's not lack of need. So that was nice information to get because that saves everything and combines it into one step. Jess has been in touch with the main bond bank, so we're working on that process as well. So that was quite good news. I mean, I had seen that in the statute, but I wasn't sure if that was going to fall under us. One portion of that is we'll have to get approval from the commissioner. But as Greg told me, that's pro forma more than anything else. Beyond that, the CPT met last week on the 19th. That's an agenda item tonight. I know Christy was there representing the board. Kathy will give an update. There's an action item there. We do have 3 brand new buses that have come in. We can thank our ARP funds, our ESSER 2 funds for those. I want to thank Sharon Siegel. She's been very helpful in getting buses registered. Like I said, having never been a transportation director before, I'm learning a lot about busing and buses in general. So it's been very helpful. We thank Sharon for her help. Beyond that, we did get notified this week that we are getting an allocation from the Department of Ed to purchase KN95 masks. So that's about $2,800. So I will be placing an order tomorrow. We've reached out to 2 different vendors, hopefully to get around 2,000 masks with that money. So they will be distributed to all employees in the district. So other than that, that concludes my report.
Questions? So I have one on the KN95 masks, since
Yep.
they are reusable until they get soiled. Right, they're not a one-time use.
They're not a one-time use, no.
So you said you're gonna issue them out to the staff, and we're gonna, how long do you think that's gonna last? The 28?
2,000, the
Yeah.
2,800, not that long. Not that long. I mean, that was nice of the DOE. So the DOE set aside some of its ARP funds for that. Every school district got an allocation. Good thing is we still have money in our ARP funds that I can set aside to purchase more should we need them. So.
Aren't we better off staying with the surgical masks? I mean, so we're gonna have limited usage for a limited number of people with the K95s,
Yep.
but the surgical provides less protection, but has served us, I guess, well so far.
They absolutely have, and we still have those as well. It'll be, but there's been a big push from the DOE and DHHS to distribute KN95, so we've been given that money directly for that purpose. So we'll start that and see where we go. We've got plenty of masks in storage, so we're in good shape there.
Okay. No other questions? We'll move on. We had a resignation.
Yep, Peter Dennis, an Ed Tech 3 at the high school. I've known Pete for, 10, 12 years now or more. Pete's given a lot to RSU4, and we wish him well. But I don't know, Marco, if you want to say anything, or Jim, you guys have worked with Pete for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, so likewise, Andy, we appreciate obviously everything that Pete's done for the years he's been at the high school.
Can I get you to,
Yeah.
because we are recording this, it would be nice if
I'm sorry, Bob.
maybe we can catch it.
Oh, hot. She's hot. All right, here we go. So as I was saying, just Pete's done a nice job, obviously, supporting the students at the high school. He's extremely flexible and dependable. He's one that we can plug in pretty much anywhere, and he does the job to the best of his ability. So we wish him well, obviously, moving forward. Jim, do you want to talk? No? That's okay. All right, thanks.
Yeah, so, like I said, I've known Pete for a long time. Marco hits it on the head. Super flexible, has done a lot for kids. If you remember correctly, Pete coached, I believe he coached Unified basketball, and did a fabulous job. So, and coached golf there for a while. He's done a lot for us. So we will miss him for sure.
Okay. Financial reports in the packet. The Finance Committee report will cover that. Special Ed report. Oh, there you are.
What's that? Are you on? There you are.
No, that was me.
Oh.
I was just tapping to see if you got noise. No. Yeah.
Thank you. So, thank you everybody for this opportunity to update you all about special ed. The audit process lives on for RSU4 this year. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a pretty intensive training with the Department of Education around transition plans, because students, once they enter 9th grade, if they have an IEP, we're responsible for making sure that we are figuring out with the family and with the student where they want to go post-secondary. And we start those conversations in 9th grade, and sometimes even sooner. So we're required to have that as part of the IEP, and there's been some changes around that, how they want that documented in the IEP. So we had a training around that. We had another training this morning with Department of Education, trying to get ahead of what is likely to be a corrective action plan. No districts that I've ever known of have gotten away with having no action plan coming out of the audit. There's always something. So in anticipation of that, they geared a training to RSU4 this morning for all of our special ed teachers, which was really, really good. Again, just really looking at the changes to the IEP that are being made in just some subtle ways, but important ways. So we continue to do that. Our contracted behavior analyst continues to provide really good dividends for special education. That behavior analyst is working with various students and teachers and ed techs around the district for kids who require behavior plans, sometimes mild behavior plans, sometimes really intensive long-term behavior plans that the behavior analyst will stay on. So I'm really, really happy that we had added that as a contract this year, and I'd like to see that continue, obviously, for next year. That person has been, and her partner have been really well received by all the teachers, and it's really been working well. So our recent snow day, followed by a couple of remote days, created a little bit of a snafu for special education. We have some students who really can't access a remote learning plan without a device. And having that snow day kind of created a little bit of a snafu. So I wanted to give a shout out to Norma Jean and her fast-working crew to get all the devices that kids need packed and ready, brought to central office for pickup by parents. We didn't have that many, but the work that she did in terms of pickup, we had a lot of students who needed them, but in terms of the pickup, we didn't have many parents come in. I think it was because of the short notice. And then she turned around and brought all the ones that hadn't been picked up back to Carrie Ricker. So thank you, Norma Jean, for that. And going forward, I want to thank administrators and whoever else was involved in the decision that buildings will be able to take their devices home on a daily basis. So if that were to happen again, where we have a snow day followed by a remote, those devices will already be home. So that was a good thing. And this has been a really good month, weirdly, for us in terms of applicants. We've had a lot of open positions in the district, and we've had some applicants come in, and there's a lot of months where I can't say that. So I'd like to think in the next couple of board meetings, we'll have some people to, whose nominations we'll be bringing forward. So that's all I've got. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy.
We have technology report. Norma Jean.
And it's definitely on.
Yes.
I won't shock myself. There's a lot of static in here tonight, so be careful when you're touching things with the carpet. But thank you for having me. I just wanted to update you on a few things that we're doing technology. We've been busy, like Nancy said, picking up devices, dropping them off, but also preparing devices for K through 4 to go home on a daily basis, working with Ben and Jamie, which has been great, and all the teachers. It's a little bit of change, but a good change for a good reason to send those home. The assessment window was extended for a week because of the remote day and the snow day. And so we're helping the teachers finish up their assessment, working with the kids and making sure everybody's tested for the winter window. The camera project for CPT and also for the high school are just buttoning up. The last 3 cameras just arrived today. So they'll go in. They're going to go in this weekend on Saturday, but I don't think with snow that might not happen. But they'll go in the next couple weeks. So that's a good thing. The schools we have left are Sabattis Primary, Libby Tozier, and Carrie Ricker. So it's just a few cameras left. And our vet tech process, which is where we look at all the instructional technology every year, where teachers have a voice and choice of this software package working good, this one isn't, do we need professional development? I heard about this one, can we check it out? That process started this week, and we'll finish up right before February vacation. And that's it for me, unless anybody has any questions.
Questions? Vicki, you have anything?
Do you have any questions, Vicki? No.
All right, thank you. Adopt Ed Athletic Director Report. She's trying to trip you.
Trying to trip you.
That's really tall. I think I usually start with athletics, so tonight I'm going to start with adult ed. And so we with the turn of the new year, typically we get some new registrations, and we get some ones from last semester that kind of petered off at the end, and they start to come back. So we're starting to see those guys come back, and we're starting to see some new registrations both for high set and high school diploma. So that's good news. The other thing we're doing is we're working on a collaboration with Lewis and Auburn for CNA classes. In the past, we typically get 1 or 2, and we don't have enough that we can offer the class without losing a lot of money on it. So working with the new director over at Lewis and Auburn, we're trying to accept our students that have interest with us, but we still get credit for them financially and subsidy-wise. So And one of the really exciting things is the new bus driving course. So that started on Monday. We have two people that came in to register for that. They're there tonight, and looks like there's some good candidates, and hopefully that they'll fill maybe some of those new buses we just got. But hoping to do that this semester and expand on that in the future. Enrichment courses. So some of our enrichment courses are starting to come back. When COVID hit, we started to lose a lot of that just because we weren't in person, and it was tough to do some of the enrichment. But we did a family game night a couple nights for last semester, and some of the ones that we're looking to maybe entice people again are cooking classes and some of those old school enrichment classes that we used to be able to offer. From the athletic side, right in the middle of the, well, we're a little bit past the middle of the season now, but it's been quite a juggling act with scheduling, as you can imagine, with teams having to cancel because of COVID or postpone because of COVID or because they don't have a bus driver or weather. It's really just been a struggle to schedule games and make sure we have officials. Officials are down, as well as bus drivers, very similar situation. So it's really tough to reschedule, but we're doing the best we can. And my goal going into this season was to try to get 18 games for our seniors, and we're on track to do that. There's a couple schools that are not really reciprocating, but we'll keep working on those to get those made up. It is an open tournament, so our coaches have realized it's not necessary to put a lot of pressure on to make the tournament because it's open and everybody's invited, and we'll follow through with that. One of the things I want to say that's been awesome, very positive, is our student section at basketball games. Had to talk to them a couple times, but they have a theme every game. And tonight it was when I left, it was pajama night. So, but they've had themes with neon, jersey night. Sharon might know, ugly sweater night. But they've been really good, and they've had good chants that are not derogatory towards the other team or towards the officials, but really just being part of the environment. So really proud. We actually had 2 officials come up and tell me that's the best student section I've seen in a long time. We've had other coaches come over and say, I wish our student section was like that. So really happy with how that's gone. Unified basketball, we took a break last year because of COVID, but we're back this year. We've got 6 games scheduled. Typically, we'll start to do that in another week or two. Actually, we start next week. Next Monday night's our first game. So kind of a new cast of characters, but I think they're going to be excited about it, and new coach and some new players. So this is probably my longest report, isn't it? It happens when you write things down, right? So wrestlers, I wanted to touch on wrestlers. We have 1 wrestler, but that's wrestling across the state is in serious trouble. Just to give you an idea, when we would do a wrestling meet, a quad, which is 4 teams come in, 5-6 years ago, we might have 50 athletes in the building. Might take us 3.5 hours to get through that meet. When we do a quad this year across our conference, there's 20 wrestlers there, and it takes about 45 minutes. So part of it is it's a tough sport, but the other part of it, I think, too, is when it first came out, they said that they were going to have to have been vaccinated, and then they went back on that. So I think a lot of them had already started to get jobs or do whatever. So hopefully we can get that back, because wrestling traditionally is a great sport across our state. So, and that's it. That's my report.
Questions? So I must mention about wrestling.
Yes.
Before I came on the board, I remember sitting in Oak Hill Gym way up on the top, and there was a discussion about canceling wrestling here. That was the biggest and rowdiest budget budget meeting or school board, or I guess it was the budget meeting that I've attended since I've lived in the towns. It was, I sat up there and people going by and pointing up, and actually threatened us if we voted for canceling it, that they were gonna be knocking on our doors. I kept looking around, being, I think, only my third year, maybe, second year in town. So, you know, is this how it goes?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, make no mistake, wrestlers are diehards. I mean, I think when the Butos came in, we talked about that a little bit, but they travel everywhere. They'll go anywhere. So they'll do it at any time. They're just diehards. And that just reminded me of our hockey team. So we have 8 players participating in hockey this year with the co-op. It's still a 4-team co-op, and that's been pretty successful. Our numbers across the 4 schools are really high. We're probably up to 35, 40 hockey players now, so which is a good sign.
Yeah, I got 4 nephews and a niece who were on the high school wrestling teams back in Wisconsin. And they're still rowdy when they get together.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's what made me think of it, hockey or diehards.
Yeah.
They'll pay any amount for ice time, and they'll show up at 4 o'clock in the morning to do it, but.
All right, any other questions, comments? Thank you very much, Jim.
And he was right. That was his longest report I've heard
Yeah.
since that's 10 years of reports. So, well done, Jim.
So we should have gave him a pen and paper a long time ago,
I guess
or
so.
shown him how to use notebook and his, all right. There's no student rep report? No other reports that I'm aware of?
Nope.
So I see no old business on the agenda. So we'll move on to new business. 7.1, entertain a motion to approve Lucille Rio
Yep.
as a Title IX Affirmative Action Officer for the remainder of the 2021-2022 school year, as approve a change
And approve. It should have said and there.
and approve a change to policy AC, ACAB, ACABR to reflect this change.
So moved.
Discussion.
So just so you all know, it's part of the law now that whoever the affirmative action Title IX officer is, has to be listed in the policy. This allows us to make that change to the policy to list that it's Lucy. If you remember, Lucy worked for us for a long time. She is retired. She did this role for us before, when she was here, before she retired. And Samantha Garnett-Sias had been filling this role, but obviously she's got a lot to do at the high school, and so it made sense to, Lucy had approached me about coming back. It actually makes good sense because she's not affiliated with any building, so investigations will be a little more streamlined, for sure. So we're happy to have her back.
Any questions? All right, seeing none, then I'll call for the vote.
All right, so this will be roll call. Vicki? Christy? Yeah. Dory? Bill is absent, sorry. Robbie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
And Bob?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you very much.
All right. 7.2, Board Advisory Committee update from the Collaborative Planning Team meeting on January 19th, 2022.
So, in front of you, and then I had Michelle send it out yesterday, is an update from the CPT team that met on January 19th. If you do go to the website, the video, the recording of the Zoom is there. There are minutes. This is also posted there. Thank Christy for taking minutes during that meeting while I facilitated. So it was a good meeting. I'm going to turn it over to Kathy to kind of give some updates, and I know Christy will have some as well. So.
Yeah, so the CPT team meeting was quite timely. So since our last iteration of the original CPT team.
Do you want to come sit over here so that Vicki can hear you? Sorry.
It's okay.
We'll have to overcome this.
Oh, I have to go sit way over there?
It was working earlier. So I think I touched it. Probably. I'll sit in my chair.
Well, I don't need that mic then.
No, you don't need that mic.
Have Mike will travel.
Well, yeah. Come ahead. I'll change.
Hi, Vicki.
And everybody else in Zoom land.
So as I was saying, the CPT team met with the new group, and it was timely because the DOE updated the SOP on December 29th and then again on January 11th. During that time, we reviewed some of the changes, and some of them were quite significant in terms of applications into our schools for the positive, at least for for our staff. So I tried to kind of go through a summary of what each of the topics were that we discussed, as well as either next steps of things that we're going to continue to do, or some suggestions for the board here. The biggest change, I think, for us as a staff is the contact tracing. So due to us still being universally masked, we no longer have to contact trace. So as on the dashboard, you will notice that starting on January 11th, we no longer contact trace. We are still notifying parents when there's a positive case, so whether parents are letting us know of that, or we're identifying positive students, either we're testing them because they're not feeling good, or if they become positive when we identify them in a pool, we are informing parents and are part of the process to talk about when it's safe to return. So that is a big difference. So unlike before, in January, I will not be able to share with you, I was able to say, here's how many COVID cases we had, here's how many close contacts we've identified, and how many wouldn't have gone into quarantine due to universal masking. Since January 11th, I haven't been keeping track of that because we aren't doing that process anymore. That is an 11-step process for every single case. So it's a significant reduction in work for our nurses, administrators, and myself. So that was a very happy change for us. So we'd like to continue to observe and reinforce universal masking, because we continue to not have to contact trace because of universal masking. If that would change, then we would have to go to different procedures. And we will continue to update the dashboard, which still shows you the positive cases in each of the schools and whether it was a student or a staff case. They did identify in the next topic, riding the bus and outdoor play is safe. That does not constitute as a close contact. So we'll continue to follow our current RSU4 plan. Mask breaks was not a topic that is part of the standard operating procedures. In fact, they do not talk about mask breaks at all, but it is a topic that seems to come up quite frequently at the school board, so we did want to talk about that. What we did is we had each of the teachers in the different buildings share what a mask break looks like at each of the grade spans, and just to kind of get clarity about what that really looks like. In general, you heard like pre-K 6 have specific times throughout the day that children are allowed, as well as students can ask. But it's generally 7 through 12. There's not necessarily specific breaks, but it's when students are advocating for themselves, they can have a mask break. Besides the regular snack time, lunchtime, drinking water, that kind of thing. So we'll continue to currently follow our mask break policy. Or procedure, I suppose, that SOP. But we just wanted to make sure it was clear, because it seemed to be some confusion there. At-home test was another one, and this is a conversation that the board will have to look into. So before January 11th, we were not accepting home tests, whether they were positive or negative. And part of that was in the SOP, it was very clear about you cannot tell who took the home test. And also, it was just really hard to procure the home test. At this point in time, it's readily available, and sometimes it's easier to get a home test than it does to get a PCR. And we have some, in a lot of our cases, if a individual tested positive at home, the doctor won't even allow you to come in to take another test. So it became abundantly clear that we needed to accept positive home tests, but we were not accepting negative home tests. And so there is a procedure that we do in order to verify, as the CDC has asked us to do, those home tests. But it is something that we would ask, we kind of wrote it down here, the fourth step is they take a picture of said test, because there are different types out there. They put the name, the birth date of the individual who took the test, the date of the test, so we can know if it's an asymptomatic person or a symptomatic person to understand isolation periods, and the signature of either the individual or the guardian to verify that they did follow the directions on the box. This has really helped us identify our cases and quicker. This probably would have been an easier thing to do when we were contact tracing, because it saved like 7 or 10 days
Yeah.
for some cases. So this has been a change for us. It has been an easy change, but again, we're only accepting the positive at-home test. Types of masks, we just talked about. When we can procure more masks, we'll do so. Andy in his report said that we would, so we'll continue to secure the PPE that's appropriate. We also updated that the vaccination mandate is kind of on pause, so there's nothing we need to update at this point. If it gets brought back up through litigation, we will update the board in a timely manner. Just kidding. Outbreak status. So the change here is in outbreak status, if you remember, I think in November I gave you a wonderful calendar of all of the schools, and it showed you how many days we were in outbreak status by school and how many cases we had, and it's now changed back to our original. So if it's 15% of our staff or 15% of our students are out on a day, we are considered an outbreak status. So that is a procedure that happened prior to COVID. That was, it was always an investigation that we had with this with CDC. So they're just going back to our regular SOP with schools. There is a form in NEO that we fill out. So in fact, we were at outbreak status last week as well as this week in 2 different schools. So we have filled out the NEO forms. What happens is we fill that out, and we have to show, it's quite extensive details of how many students are out, how many staff are out, what are the symptoms of the individuals that are sick, and any notes that we gotta kind of put through. But it's literally gotta mark down every single symptom from rashes to fevers to COVID to how many are COVID-19 positive, that kind of thing. We have to do that once we send it into the DOE and the CDC. They might open an investigation, and once you do that, you have to do it for 14 days consecutively. If you cannot, after day 15, get down below that 15%, they will open up another investigation. We're not there yet, but we are still doing the reports. So we will let the board know every time they open an investigation on outbreak status. So we are beyond the 15% in 2 of the schools. However, until they open investigations, we're not considered an outbreak status at this point in time. The last one is the quarantine. So that was a big change that you saw all over the place, that we went from 10 days to 5 days. So this has kind of been a tricky piece, and I kind of have a canned response when a staff member gets sick of like, here's the information I need. On day 5, they usually contact me to see if they kind of get out of quarantine on day 6 or if they need to do the 10 days. There's a lot of different variables of whether they were asymptomatic or symptomatic. When did they test to know? How are their symptoms? Resolving symptoms are a big piece of that. So this is right off of the SOP. So this isn't changed. This isn't a change in terms of the CPT changing any of the wordings. This is actually one of the diagrams. I think it's Appendix G. So this is right off of there. So if they test or have symptoms, regardless of vaccination status, they must stay home for 5 days. And that's, understanding what day 0 is. So if you test, if you're asymptomatic, your day 0 is the day you test. If you're symptomatic, it's their first day of symptoms. So that's always sometimes tricky. It's like, oh, I might have had a headache, or I might have felt, stuffy. So we kind of have to work through figuring out what that day 0 is in order to figure out what day 5 is. Isolate from others in your home and wearing a mask when you're around others. So ending isolations if you have symptoms. So you have to be fever-free for 24 hours without medication. That's always been part of our policy. And your symptoms are improving. So you don't have to be symptom-free, but you have to have resolving symptoms. So that's very different for every individual. It is recommended that if you are on day 5 and you have an at-home test, that you test. And on day 5, if you test positive, then you continue your isolation for 10 days. If you test negative, then you can come out of isolation on day 6. It's really kind of testing to see how much of the virus you're expelling at that point. If you don't have any symptoms, again, if you're asymptomatic, on day 6, you're welcome to come back. If you are severely sick, we've had people who have to get on medication that they don't normally need, like inhalers or steroids or other things like that. If you are so sick that you need to get onto another medication, it is recommended to do the full 10 days. Other precautions that you hear around is wear a mask, avoid travel, and avoid being around people that are high risk, for sure. So we've kind of created an SOP in terms of we're asking and advocating for parents to call us right away. So when you have one symptom, let the nurse know. So we're asking anyone that's exhibiting even a headache or stuffy, let the nurse know so we can start tracking that. Contact the school nurse. This is really important as we're doing the outbreak status. I was talking to Mr. Wilson. On day 1, we had a lot of parents and students that weren't calling the school, so they were getting absence unexcused. And so we had 17 out of our 40 students out that day that we had no idea if they were sick or why they were out. So, and then we started making a lot more phone calls, a lot more emails, and a lot more follow-up, and then we could reduce that. We reduced it by, I think, 3% that one day, and then another 5% the next day. But it's really important as parents to let us know, is your child actively sick? Are they taking a mental health day? Are they just out today? The why is really important, but we really just need to kind of know what that symptom is. If individuals test positive, they report their results, their test type. We have to actually report whether it's an antigen test or a PCR. So it is very specific on the information that we need to do. And it's really important to figure out and determine that day 0 for us. We're asking for students and parents to contact the school nurse on day 5 to see if they can come back and are cleared to come back on day 6. And staff contact me on day 5 to see if they're coming back. And then step 4 is to return to school, whether it's on day 6 or whether it's on day 11 without any restrictions. So that would be our recommendation for SOP. It is one of the things that we've started to work on since that January 11th, and it's working well so far. But it is a case by case. It's not a standard, you have this symptom, you equal this many days. It's really, we have to work with you to figure out how you're feeling, because everyone's tolerance level and how COVID or other symptoms, there are colds, there are flus still out there, there's strep throat that we're still dealing with. So we have to go case by case about when people are cleared to return. Gave you the sample letter of what would go home from the positive cases, and also a graphic just to kind of put on the website. So if you approve that tonight, then we'll put it on the website just to help parents kind of walk that through. And it's really about advocating and teaching parents to call us, let us know. That's all we want to know. We're not trying to pry, but we want to make sure that we're making sure everyone's clear to come back when they're supposed to, and if we have the information, if we have to do a report.
Any questions, Kathy? Christy, do you have something to add?
I think Kathy's still in.
Would you like to come sit here?
No, I don't.
Oh.
You might have to so they can hear you out in Zoom
that's
land.
true. I'll talk. Vicki, can you hear me?
Nope.
No.
Oh.
Not gonna say that.
You get to sit in the hot seat.
That's all right.
Is that better? Can you hear me now? Okay, awesome. So I think the biggest takeaway for me, and Kathy, you might as well stand up here because I'm going to probably put you on the spot again, but the at-home test piece, you've been utilizing that with staff, and it's been quite successful as a way of staff being able to communicate kind of what's going on without that lag time, which I think is really, really important. And I think the biggest takeaway for me in that meeting was the importance of parents sharing exactly what was going on with their cases. Like, personal example, like when my family had COVID in our household, I called the school to let them know, like, my kids have no symptoms, they've tested negative, but I'm gonna keep them out of school just for the 5 days because that's what felt right to me as a parent. So I think this flow chart makes a whole lot of sense when I'm looking at it as a mom that has 2 school-age kids. So I think it was a really informative meeting, and I think there's a really good plan here, so. I don't know if that's helpful. And a lot of these changes are from the main CDC. It's not the CPT saying that these changes need to happen. So it's adopting what the DOE is suggesting.
Any questions? Okay, thank you all. I should, now we need to come up with what the motion's gonna say. And so I'm looking that the motion would have us include the wording that's in the at-home test section,
Yep.
okay? With the exception of take out the determination SOP listed above, but would be
Yeah.
what the SOP is.
Yep. I think you could say to follow the SOP recommended for at-home tests
And also the SOP recommended
for quarantine.
for quarantine.
Yep.
So that's the SOP, but then there's also provide follow-up information to parents on positive
Sure.
cases.
Yep, you can add that as well.
All right? So that would be the intent of, I believe, unless somebody has something else that they would like to modify or change or add. Any other discussions on the changes?
I think one of the other pieces that this group really kind of struggled with was the availability of tests and making sure that that's equitable for all students, which is why I think the language is if you have a test available to you, it's not a requirement. So I just think that that's important for the board to take into consideration when making these decisions.
Well, and to echo what Christy said, having been through this recently myself and the availability of testing, it's almost non-existent. I ended up having to go to my doctor's office. They were able to give me a test there, but I was able to procure at-home tests as well. It's just the availability of testing outside your home is very, very difficult. My wife currently works for Express Care in Waterville. They're doing at least 60 to 70 swab and goes a day, and only if you're symptomatic. And so I just think, I echo what Christy said. I would also say, this meeting was fantastic. It really was. If you have a chance to watch it, please do, because I think it shows the ability for a group to work together and have, a couple of times there was some hard stuff to talk about, and yet work through it, which was really well done.
Okay,
So I have a question. At one point, the school was provided with tests.
We have tests.
Okay.
Well-
And is that exclusively for the pool testing, the tests?
It-
Or how is that
Well, and Kathy can
delegated
talk
out?
about this as well. We use it for the follow-up for pool testing. We also use it for students who become symptomatic or staff while they're at school. I don't know if you want to add to that, Kathy?
Yeah, we also have parents who call in and ask for testing because of, they might have had, like, their parents have tested positive, their kids are asymptomatic, and so, like, usually on day 4 or 5, we might test kids just to make sure that they may not be a pool test participant, but
Right.
they might have COVID going on in their home, and they just want to make sure that they're not asymptomatic. So
Yeah.
sometimes we're getting parent requests for asymptomatic, sometimes they're showing symptoms and we're monitoring them, and then it's also the follow-up for pool testing.
So, and I will say even that has been kind of a struggle, so I ordered right before Christmas, Kathy?
For Christmas.
I ordered 1,600 test cards. We just got them today.
Yeah.
So there has been, there are times when we order and we get them within, a week. Lately, it's been 3 to 4. So we've been ordering quite frequently to have a constant supply come in. But even the DOE has said their supply chain is lower than maybe they would choose it to be.
So I guess my question also is it too general of a motion to state that we are looking to accept the updated CPT plan for COVID-19? Because that way we wouldn't necessarily have to specify what the changes are, but we could say the updated plan as of the team meeting on July 19th, 2022.
but we
Excuse
haven't
me,
been
July.
presented
God,
with it.
I'm dreaming of summer.
We haven't been presented with a new plan.
Just a modification.
Okay.
This is just highlights of the
Yeah.
plan.
Right.
So
Okay.
if they had taken the plan and redrafted it to include the recommended changes,
Okay,
and that's what, when I first got that was kind of my intent, was to go through
Right.
and just say, okay, we'll approve it without taking out the highlighted areas.
right,
But
okay,
that's not what we have, so
okay,
we're not being presented with the plan, and I think it probably is not appropriate to
okay.
call this part of the recommended
That's why I
plan.
was asking. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think, just for transparency purposes, just my 2 cents here, it's important to be a little more pointed with the motion.
Sure.
To say, we're only addressing this time a change to at-home test acceptance and quarantine.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's why I asked the question.
Okay, so, I'm not gonna, when we get to the next item, but this is still under discussion, so here's what I kind of put down, which I think encompasses it, but please, it might not be right, we want to make sure we get it right. So I have, it would be moved to modify the language in the plan to accept the new SOP for home test and SOP under quarantines, as well as providing for follow-up information to parents of positive cases regarding a return date as recommended by the CPT. So basically, we're taking the 2 SOPs and then adding that other sentence there. Well, I guess it's the 2 of them, is share the new SOP, share the new SOP for him, we're gonna do that, gonna share all SOPs.
Right. Gonna do that anyway.
So I think that is what we're changing, is the 2 new SOPs and then the follow-up.
Yes,
All right.
So Vicki, the motion will encompass the change to the 2 SOPs and the follow-up.
Can you read the motion so I can hear it?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? So we haven't got to the motion yet, so we're still under discussion. All right, but
All right.
this is the motion I'm proposing. I think that's what we've discussed. It would be moved to modify the language in the plan to accept the new SOP for at-home test and SOP under quarantines, as well as providing follow-up information to parents of positive cases regarding a return date as recommended by the CPT.
Okay, thank you.
That's fine with you?
Absolutely.
All right, so if there's no more discussion under this, then we will move on. All right, 7.3. I would entertain a motion to modify the language in the plan to accept the new SOP for at-home test and SOP under quarantines, as well as providing follow-up information to parents of positive cases regarding a return date as recommended by the CPT. Moved, you have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion. No discussion? No discussion, I'll call for the vote.
All right, roll call vote. Vicki?
Yes.
Christie?
Yes.
Absent. Robbie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Jen?
yes,
Joe?
Yes.
And Bob?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously approved. Thank you all.
Thank you, and I'd like to offer a special thanks to those on the CPT. Giving up your time and giving it some thoughtful thought. I have not viewed the Zoom meeting. I was going to, but I decided I was going to rely on our committee representative and Kathy to give us the input. I may go back out and watch it again just to see the interaction between everybody, but I didn't want to try and use that as a basis of my decision. All right, committee report, finance and facilities.
Yep, I'll start with the finance. On the revenue side, we've received 50% of the budget. And on the expenditure side, we've expended 49% of the budget. Andy's got the budget in a hard freeze. And we're working on the budget. He's starting to meet with administrators, so we'll start having meetings on the budget February.
End of February, 1st of March.
Yep.
Yeah, probably the first meeting in March. Yeah.
And on the facility side, Andy mentioned quite a few things about the buses. Our Siemens comprehensive contract is coming up for renew. The lighting project is 2/3 done, and we'll be putting our oil and diesel fuel out to bid. That's it.
Any questions?
Yes. Given the change in having Glenn gone and all of that, where are we with the cutting of the trees and the field
I asked
stuff?
Andy that tonight.
Yeah,
The surveying has been done,
okay,
and we don't have to get as deep as we thought into the end of our property.
yeah,
So we'll put out a request bid this spring to cut the trees back. But because of what's going on with the softball field, we will be using the softball field this spring.
the old or the new?
The old,
The old.
the old field.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So that project probably really won't get going until after softball.
Any other questions? All right, Policy and Personnel Committee? Okay, have not met yet. CAI Technology Committee?
We did not meet, we met last time.
Super. Board member comments? Any board member comments? I would just like to mention that there seems to be some confusion within our district of our administrative coverage of our schools. The board has worked for quite a while on getting that down, and decisions have been made and been talked about, and our administrators give reports every month, and they identify what schools that they're in charge of. We have a principal and vice principal in each of the 3 towns. So Litchfield shares a principal and vice principal between Carrie Ricker and Libby Tozier. Sabattis has a principal and vice principal, and they share the duties between Oak Hill Middle School and Sabattis Primary. And Oak Hill High School has a principal and a vice principal. The reason that we have elected to do that in prior discussions and actions by the board was because, as was mentioned earlier, we have a project to put an addition on Oak Hill Middle School that will allow us to bring all of our students into those 3 buildings, Oak Hill Middle School, Carrie Ricker, and Oak Hill High School. We do not need to have 5 principals or 4.5 principals or whatever. We will need to have 3 principals at that time and 3 vice principals. So we will be well positioned as we make those moves to have teams that are already used to working together, and will be very cohesive so that we will be able to move right into that with as little administrative disruption as possible. So for those that are out there or here who may be wondering why we have 1 principal between 2 buildings, it's because we gave them an assistant principal. So they have an assistant principal to help them with the other building, and I believe with exception Oak Hill, which is 1 building, high school, they kind of work back and forth across. So I want to make sure that the people out in the community are aware of the thought process. This has been a long time discussion, a long time move by the board over many, well, I guess years really in some cases, but certainly within the last year there's been a lot of movement this direction. Was part of the reorganization discussion when we moved the grades around. So if you have questions about that, please contact. I will mention that I found it a little bit difficult also to find out that Ben Wilson was the principal of the schools. You have to really drill down on some strange things because it's not out there, you know, under a nice little click. And I see Norma Jean raising her hand, so maybe there's going to be an update to the website. It's everywhere now. Huh? All right. So when you find issues like that, please contact maybe the best place, because you can always find the number for the superintendent's office. It's right on the main webpage. Call there and ask the question and get the right answer. And then we can also take actions if we find out that we don't have the best layout on the web for people to get the information that they need and should be able to get easily. So those are my comments for tonight. I appreciate, we're going to go into an executive session to discuss, as it says, the superintendent's evaluation. There is no business other than to adjourn that will follow the executive session. By statute, we will have to open the meeting back up to the public in order to adjourn. So if you want to hang around to watch us do that, please. I don't know how long this evaluation discussion will take, so I can't give you an estimated time. So again, thank you for coming. Stay warm tonight. It's going to be really cold. And take care of your neighbors. Thank you. At this time, I would entertain a motion to enter into an executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056A, evaluation of the superintendent.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor?
All right, we do need a roll call vote. Vicky?
Yes.
Christy? Robbie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Motion carries. We will be in executive session at 7:32 p.m.
Super.
All right. So,
Everybody in the waiting room but Vicky?
12. All right. There's nobody in the,
Vicky
Yeah,
signed
she-
off.
yeah, she-
wasn't feeling good.
she texted
She
me.
was not feeling good at all.
No,
She did not sound good.
no, I talked to her the other day, she sounds terrible.
Recording in progress.
Yeah. her
We back
cough is
on?
bad. Yes.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're out of executive session. At this time, I would without objection, I will declare this meeting adjourned. No objections, we're adjourned. Thank you all. We'll see you the second Wednesday of February.
It's the 9th.